You are listening to Productivity Straight Talk with your host, Amber De La Garza. Amber is a sought-after productivity coach, trainer, speaker, and writer who gives entrepreneurs the straight talk on personal productivity. No BS, fluff, or overused jargon. Just actionable strategies to get results and succeed in business. And here is your host, Amber De La Garza, the Productivity Specialist.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to Productivity Straight Talk. Today is episode 76. Surrendering to Your Season with Katie Krimitsos. If you are an entrepreneur who wants actionable solutions to maximize profits, reduce stress, and make time for what matters most, then you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you've joined me. The Productivity Straight Talk podcast is sponsored by my very own signature training and coaching program, Stop the Entrepreneur's Success Solution. Stop letting your business run you and start succeeding with the Entrepreneur's Success Solution. To find out more, visit theproductivityspecialist.com/stop. I am so excited about this episode because you're going to meet my friend and our guest, Katie Krimitsos. Katie is a mom, wife, adventurer, podcaster, business strategist, seeker, and change maker. She's committed to brightening the light of women around the world through her Biz Women Rock community, which supports women entrepreneurs, and now through Meditation for Women, guided meditations that are specifically created with the special journey of women in mind. These meditations are tools to help women reconnect with the divine wisdom already inside each of us so that we may live our own extraordinary lives. When listening in on my conversation with Katie, you will discover tips for embracing the season you're in, the decision-making matrix to help you prioritize your ideas, a tool to aid you in figuring out what you really want, the giant myth preventing you from being productive, why it's okay to stand in the silence, how Katie made more in 3 months than in her previous 3 years. This is a great story, and so much more. So let's dive right in and meet Katie. Okay. Before we dive in, I do need to let you know that this was an amazing conversation with Katie that I never thought that we could truly recreate the essence of. The audio is not the best. Now, Katie sounds amazing and she's doing most of the talking, so that's great. But I accidentally recorded with the wrong microphone and didn't realize it until the interview was over. So please bear with me. If you're new to Productivity Straight Talk, this is not the traditional or normal audio quality that we have, but I do think we were able to make it good enough to make sure that this interview was not missed. So stay tuned, stay with me, and thank you so much for understanding. Hello, Katie, and welcome to Productivity Straight Talk. How are you doing today?
What's up, Amber? I'm so happy to be back here. I love you. I love what you're about, and I love this show. So thanks for having me on.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm so looking forward to this episode and this conversation. We were just kind of having a chit chat before we recorded. And I was saying to everybody, this is Friday afternoon for both of us, a late Friday afternoon. And I had one heck of a week, and you're in the middle of traveling, working on the road.
Yep.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I was actually so looking forward to this episode because we get to play this afternoon and everyone gets to listen in on our conversation.
It's exactly what it is for me. It's like, it's so invigorating. I was so exhausted right before this. And then I was like, oh, well, I could take a nap after. And I was like, no, I'm going to be totally jazzed after I talk to Amber. There's no way I'm going to be like all high on energy.
Yes. So that's our first productivity tip, guys. Lean into your passion when you're tired or have less energy and schedule it for times that you normally have less energy, because I really get energy from talking to people too. And so my calendar often looks like either interviews or client calls because I'm always on. But if I had to do deep work in the afternoons, that's not happening. So There you go. Tip number one, guys.
There you go. Start right away.
But today we're talking because I actually know that Katie has been able to accomplish so much in her business, and she has a lot less time dedicated to her business hours than most. And so I wanted to have a conversation about how do you actually get more work done in less time? Because through my coaching, I have really found that sometimes my clients that have the least amount of time
actually get the most done? And so I just wanted to peel that back today and have a conversation about how is that possible when we compare maybe other entrepreneurs that are working 10, 12 hours a day, 6, 7 days a week, and they still feel like they're just running on a treadmill, not really, slaying their goals.
Yep.
Katie, why don't you open it up and tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and who you serve, and then you can lead us into, well, why do you have less hours? I think that will probably come up.
Yeah. So it's worth noting that I used to be that person that you're talking about, the person who would work 10, 12, up to 18 hours a day sometimes in the business that my husband and I used to run locally, which was called the Tampa Bay Business Owners. It was my first entrepreneurial endeavor. And so there was a big mindset of, if I work harder and longer, I will be successful. And all I need to do is just keep on working harder and longer. And I'm somebody who's not afraid of hard work. So I burnt out many, many times over the years and just kept getting back up and doing it. But I should mention that that was prior to kids. So, so what happened is I did that business, and my natural tendencies for how I work, I'm very much an organizer. I like being productive. I think that's, you and I can geek out on productivity all day long. I want to be productive, but that doesn't mean that I was always implementing those things in my prior entrepreneurial life. I launched Biz Women Rock back in 2014, which started as a podcast and really grew into an entire brand, still is a very thriving brand of a community of women entrepreneurs who are very dedicated to growing their businesses very passionately, very purposefully, and profitably. My role within that community is right now as a business coach and strategist. I have in the past had masterminds that I produced, online education courses, live events, retreats, all that jazz. I have been doing that in some way, shape, or form basically since 2014. But most of all of that work that I'm talking about, as far as what the business model was, has happened in the past 2 years. The reason why that all got super focused is because I was sort of in the business of Biz Women Rock. I was there. I was like trying to figure out what my unique thing was. Like, how was I really providing support? I wasn't, I didn't know, like, should I be a coach? Should I have a program for people? Like, what do I do here? And then I got pregnant with my first daughter. I was still trying a bunch of stuff. I had like a Facebook groups rock program at the time, an online course. And so I was really promoting that. And then I had my daughter, and things just kind of stopped for a while because I was so like in the mess and chaos of being a brand new mother with a newborn and didn't really know what I was doing. And so it wasn't until she was about 9 months old that all I had been doing was really maintaining the community, maintaining the podcast, maintaining the private Facebook group that we have. That was it. So I wasn't really having any focus on how I was working or why I was working or what I was doing to generate revenue. When she was 9 months old, and this really gets me to the really big first tip of how I do this, and it will better explain what I'm doing now and how I do it. I took myself on a weekend getaway, call it my Katie retreat, and I said, what is important for me? And when I really asked myself that, it was like, I want to be able to spend time with my daughter. I want to be able to spend quality time in my business, growing my business. And I want to believe that I can have a seriously successful business and be present with my daughter and have a thriving relationship and be super healthy, like all these things. So where that got me was, okay, well, how does that translate to my calendar? You and I are super like into organizing our calendars. What does that mean? How many hours a week do I have to work? How many hours a week am I going to be mom? How many hours a week do I have to spend time with my husband? How many hours a week am I going to work out? Like all of those things. And what that translated to in the business sense was, okay, I've got about 30 hours a week of work to do. And so my mindset shifted immediately in that moment from, let me just work hard and long. In the world of business, you have a never ending to-do list. There's always more stuff to do, right?
So Katie, let me ask for clarity. You said you had 30 hours of work. You meant you figured out that it took 30 hours, or you're saying you had 30 hours left after carving out mommy time, husband time?
Yes.
So there's 30 hours left.
So I did not start with what are all the things I have to do and how long is that going to take me? It was not there. It was like, what time do I want to dedicate on my calendar to my daughter and then to my husband and to my health? And then what time do I want to dedicate to my business? It was just like bare bones flat from there. And that meant for me back then, okay, I'm working Monday, Tuesdays, Thursdays, full days. So those are days my daughter goes to daycare. And on Wednesdays and Fridays, I get to be full-time mommy. That added up to about 30 hours. Like if you included a few nap times in there. And I was like, okay. Then the next question obviously became, how do I build a thriving business that makes an impact that is profitable and purposeful in 30 hours a week?
Right.
Which I think, when you ask me, like, how do you do more with less time? That is a foundational question I feel like every single one of us needs to answer for ourselves.
Absolutely.
So when I asked myself that question, then the immediate next step was priorities. What am I working on?
Mm-hmm.
And what offerings do I have? Which ones are the ones that are the most productive for me, meaning the ones that I would love to do the most, the ones that would bring the most value to my community, the ones that would be most profitable, and the quickest really that to start implementing. And that's what I focused on. And that made immediate impact in my business revenues and in the direction of my entire company.
Okay, Katie. So let's just peel that back from what I'm hearing is that this new reality of limited time forced you to ask questions that you actually probably didn't ask yourself in the previous life, because the answer was, it didn't matter. Everything's a priority. I'll just keep working more. I'm going to do it all.
Exactly.
Okay.
Who cares if I only sleep 3 hours a night? I'll make up for it. Who cares if I'll just keep working late? Like there was never a concept of like restricted time. And so I'll just keep doing more. I'll work on the weekends. I'll do whatever. It'll bleed over into whatever. And this was the first time in my life where I was like, I don't want business to bleed over. Here's a challenge though. I love doing what I do. So like this, even the boundaries of like going into mommyhood, I really have to manage all of that and stay on point with that. But same thing, like I'm like, I don't want to be distracted by all the things that I need to get done in my head when I'm hanging out with my daughter or hanging out with my family. I want to be there and present. And so, yeah, that was a very big reality.
That's great. Okay. And these questions that you came up with yourself, were you asking them in your head and like walking? I know you're really active. Were you journaling? Was it just rapid fire ask Katie, or did it really like take multiple days to answer it? Let's just pull back. How difficult was it to answer these questions? Because I feel like we try to ask ourselves some form of these questions and they don't always just come out as fluid as we'd like or as clear as we would like it to be. So what was your actual journey of finding those answers for yourself?
My Katie retreat lasted for 2 days. And I knew it wouldn't be like, oh, I'm going to the spa and I'm, relaxing on the beach, but I knew I was going to work. I didn't have a plan for what that would be. I didn't really know what it would be. I just knew like I showed up at the little place I was staying at. Okay, what am I here to do? And so what that ended up looking like was a couple of tools that I still use to this day for many of my clients and many of my community members. And it just kind of came out of me. And so what the answer to this ultimately is me writing stuff out and organizing it in a way in front of me. So the first tool that I created just right then and there was what I called my mompreneur mission statement. What is my mission statement? And this is like if you have a life mission statement or even a business mission statement, this is like asking the heart of what is important for me as someone who now identifies as a mom and a business owner. What is important for me? And that's when I came up with, here's what's important to me. And I've got 30 hours a week to do something purposeful in my business, right?
Right.
The second tool that I then used, because after I got there, it was obvious. I was like, okay, now what do I focus on? Where do I spend my time in these 30 hours? So the next tool that I came up with is, I call it the decision-making matrix, and it's a spreadsheet. And I just wrote on there, what programs or services do I have right now to offer? And what ideas, and this is pertinent for most all of us, what other ideas have I come up with that I keep thinking like, oh, I should do that and I should do that because it's the next best thing, right?
Yes.
So let me just get that down. Let me get all of these ideas down, whether I actually provide them or not. And then I came up with my own version of a rating system of over 4 different categories. What would I rate them from 1 to 10? We could talk about the breakdown of that. But basically what it did is it gave every single one of those programs or services a very real, objective number and rating. So I could see which ones rose to the top. I could see which ones had the highest rating.
Oh my gosh, this is so good. Okay, hold on. This is really good because the reason that many entrepreneurs are trying to do it all is because they're afraid to double down on one thing. So they're literally taking, let's just call it money, but it's not money. We're talking time. So you're taking your time, you're trying to invest it and literally lay it across all these ideas. Because if one hits, you want to make sure you bet on that number, right?
Right. Which is a bunch of BS because you can't actually do real quality work or depth in any one of them, right?
No, not at all. However, what you're talking about is your process allowed this to bubble up and say, oh my gosh, that's like the winning horse. Like I'm doubling down on that one first. And then
that's exactly it.
Energy goes there.
That's exactly. And I'll give you the things that I had measured. They were 4 things. They were, how much would I love to do this? Between a 1 and a 10, right? 1, 10, I would love this. I want to do it now. The second measurement was, does my community need this? For some of those things that I have thought about, but hadn't put out there quite yet, it was just a guess. I think that they need this. Or a 10, people are asking me about this all the time and I just haven't offered it yet, right?
Yes.
The third one was quickness to market. Does this take me sending out an email, somebody could pay me and we get started? Or does this take me spending a couple months to build out a back office product of a course, right? Like how long will it take me? And then the last one was profit potential. Is this a $37 product or is this a $5,000 or $10,000 program? What is that? So once I gave a score to all of those, who earned a 40 and who earned a 38? And so I sorted the list and then I intuitively said, okay, which ones would I like to work on? The top 2 that came up for me when I did this process were one-on-one coaching and strategizing and what eventually became the Biz Women Rock retreat.
Which you've done both.
And by the way, I was super vague on any of these beforehand. So at that point, I had done a little bit of coaching, enough to know that I really enjoyed it. I just really hadn't told anyone that I actually could coach and I could actually like strategize and that I was kind of brilliant with that, right?
Right.
Nor had I ever attempted to put on a live event for Biz Women Rock. So what it did is it got me super clear about where my time should be spent during those 30 hours. And then from there, I just got real clear on what is that? What are the features, the benefits, and who is the ideal person for each of those offerings? And then you get into purposeful marketing, right? Like, okay, cool. Then I can come up with creative ways on how to officially open up for business for both of these things and how to creatively market the retreat. This exact moment that I'm talking about when I did this decision-making matrix for myself was in August, which means that I launched both of these offers in September. October, November, December. So within a matter of about 3.5 months, I made more money than I had made in the previous 3 years of my business. I had a product and a package. I knew exactly what it was. I knew exactly how to market it. And I knew how to flip and spend my time.
Oh my gosh, that is so valuable. That is great.
And the marketing became so fun because I was so invigorated by it. I knew in my head that I didn't need to mess with all those other 8,000 ideas that everyone else was telling me were phenomenal ideas. But I was like, nope, this is what I'm doing.
Yes. And every one of those decisions was based on closest to the dollar because we all have to be in business and make a profit or the door's shut.
Yep.
And you were able to identify your high value productive activities, right?
Totally.
That's the most productive. So now you've identified, which some people just stop there, by the way, Katie. So, okay, so you identified it. Now, what did taking action on that look like? Because I think a lot of listeners are probably thinking, okay, that's great, Katie, but wasn't there a lot of like admin and calls and follow-ups and emails and like, where did all that go? So how did you take that 30 hours and distribute it amongst your high-value productive activities and all the things it takes to run a business and or your team?
So great question. I should mention first that it's worth noting that I had a platform already. I was not in the space of needing to build a list. I was not in the space of needing to build an audience. I already had it, which was an immense valuable thing for me already. So I just hadn't flippin' used it effectively. You know, I had a podcast. I had a very successful Facebook group. I had a very engaged email list. So all I needed to do was share with them officially, right? So where I spent my time and how I divided up my resources was the only thing that matters. I was very short term in this process. It was all about the sprints. How many clients do I want? How many one-on-one clients do I want? How many people do I want at that retreat, at the first retreat? I gave myself the goals and I was like, okay, let's go to town. And I think just by giving ourselves goals, and I would imagine you find this a lot too, Amber, your brain starts to really get so creative about how could I achieve those goals?
Yeah.
For the coaching, this is a strategy I've talked about a lot and I love it. And I've actually done it a couple of times now and it's worked every single time. I ran a contest and I basically ran a contest to give away a free 90-minute strategy session. It lasted over the course of 2 weeks. I had people fill out a Google form to share with me some information about themselves so they could apply to win the thing. And I was promoting the hell out of it. Hey, win this 90-minute strategy session. So the purpose of that is it did a couple things. It immediately let people know that I actually am a business strategist and that I could help them, right? Which
yes, it did.
I had never put that out to the world before. So it was officially me saying, I am a strategist. I have a thing called 90-minute strategy session. Here's the value of it. And you could win it totally for free. And then what it did is it gave me an immediate pipeline of people who were interested in that kind of work with me.
Right.
Immediately. Now, I have to admit, I never remember the exact numbers on this, but let's just say that I got about 24 people to say yes and fill out that form.
This time or last time?
The very first time. And I've had similar numbers as I've just recently when I did this again for a completely different reason. But I had 24 people fill that out. I got really creative and fun with how I announced the winner. My daughter was just about a year old. We happened to be in Greece. I had my husband record a video. I had put everyone's name on a piece of paper, ripped it up like old school style, put it in a bucket, and I had my daughter pick out a name. So I had him pre-record that video of me and Sedona, like picking out the winner. I posted it in my group, tagged all the people who had applied, said, thank you so much, sent it out to the email list, all this sort of stuff, right? Just made a big deal about the winner. Then what I did is I went back to each of those other 23 people and I said, hey, listen, I really appreciate you submitting your application. As a thank you, I want to give you 25-minute strategy session just to say thank you. No strings attached. I just want to give you my time. And it was no strings attached. The value for me was that I would get to have intense strategy sessions in little pieces with my community members. So I would get to know their biggest pains. I would get to know that. I would get to have an excuse to really build a solid relationship with them. So out of those 23 people, I want to say like 14 people ended up booking 25-minute strategy sessions with me. Mm-hmm. I did those strategy sessions. Again, it was not hey, let me strategize for 10 minutes and then spend 20 minutes, selling you on why you should hire me. It was none of that. It was like all strategy.
All value.
All value. By the end of it, one of two things were happening. They were either asking me, how can I work with you? Mm-hmm. Or it was the perfect entree for me to spend 5 seconds saying, hey, listen, we just came up with this cool strategy. If you want help and support implementing it through private coaching, I am happy to let you know some more information about that. And they always said yes. And I was like, okay, cool. So I would just email them some follow-up information. We'd go back and forth. Yeah. So out of those 14 people, 3 converted into clients. Mm-hmm. The one who won her free 90-minute strategy session turned into a client. And 2 other people who never even entered the drawing, who just saw that I was open for business, came on as clients. So within 6 weeks of me sitting down and identifying that one program that I was very clear on that I wanted to do, that one marketing strategy got me 5 clients right away.
That is a great case study. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. The focus, right? And you were able to put all your attention on the contest because maybe some other people have done contests, but weren't thinking like, well, how do you take advantage of the 23 that didn't get it? And how do you serve? You took that one strategy and went deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper until it really, really paid off.
This is why I'm such a fan of focused, intentional marketing strategies, is because we often, myself included, can feel like, okay, well, this is the result that we want. We want 6 more clients or whatever it is. Oh my gosh, we have to build out this funnel, and then we have to build out the email list, and then we have to go be on all those platforms and implement a 3-month marketing strategy. No, you don't. You don't need to do any of that. What do you need and how soon do you need to get it? And let's create a strategy that can get you results fast. Like, let's do that.
Right. I hear it kind of like you created it as a project. It was a very specific, shorter period of time. Here's all the things I needed to do to get this result. Then that project led to the next project, which happened to be probably your next offering.
That was the retreat. Totally. And it fell right in line with all of that stuff. So once that promotion was over for the freebie, right, for the free giveaway and the contest, then the promotions came about. I used that time also to get clear on the logistics of the retreat so that it would be ready to start marketing as soon as my promotions for the coaching were done. That's why results happened so fast. And at that first retreat, again, by the end of that year, so we're talking within 4 months of me sitting down and getting clarity on this, I had the retreat, sold it out at 13 people for $1,000. I mean, it was super cheap back then. Like, it was $1,000. It was a whole weekend of like intense business prep. It is very rare for somebody to have like an initial event that is actually really profitable. I attribute it to that because I was super intentional about what I was doing to then market that retreat. I was leveraging the momentum I just had from the contest and put it into the marketing for the retreat.
Momentum. It really, really helps. That's awesome. Okay, so did you have to beef up your team when you decided to go from all the hours to 30 hours? What does your team and support look like?
Not right away. It didn't take long. It took me, I think, till the end of that year. So a couple more months to realize like, I need some real help with this. Back then, I was actually still producing my own podcast. I had a marketing manager who was taking on a lot of my general social media stuff. But this again, like I got a lot more intentional about how I was getting help. And so by January of the next year, so 4 months later, I hired a producer for my podcast, which saved me a ridiculous amount of time. I think I fired that social media manager, but I hired a personal assistant.
Okay.
And just got really clear about how she could help me. And then I had like an accountant, but I was a lot more intentional with how I was using her and what she was taking off my plate at that point. So yeah. And that's really what my team is right now.
Really? I wasn't expecting that. You're a machine with this tiny little team.
As business grows, I know that I will need more people, but the truth be told, like if you can't tell by now, I don't do well doing 10 different things.
Right.
I want to do 1 or 2 or 3 things really well. And I'm all about like when I find the process and the most effective way of doing things, the most efficient way of doing things, I do my best to create that process once, hand it over to somebody and put it in their hands and then move forward. So fast forward to now, I know we haven't really gotten to this story yet, but I launched a brand new podcast that's under a brand new podcast network. It's basically an entirely new business for me.
Go ahead and share it. I was just going to ask you, what are you excited about? Go ahead and share it with our audience. So you did a pivot and you're like super excited about this new project.
Did a total pivot. So there's big stories behind why I did the pivot, but I did a big pivot in my business this year. So instead of Biz Women Rock building out to be coaching turned into masterminds, turned into high-end masterminds, turned into giant live events, turned into online course, which was the path that I was going in and already on, by the way, which was really awesome. We found out we were pregnant earlier this year and it just sort of switched gears for me because all of those things that I had been so excited to do, they necessitate me and my time and my energy, and happily so. A high-end mastermind is not something that I can send an assistant to, right? Like I need to be there. I need to be present. A live event, I can outsource a lot of those details, but I need to be there in that mix, a program attached to that event. And I was wanting to, before we got pregnant, I was like, that's it, right?
Yes.
So once we got pregnant, I was like, wait a minute, what is this next season of my life about to happen? And does this business model that I have set up, does that work for it? Are there ways that I could still make it happen? Do I want to? Should I really transition? So I transitioned recently to a brand new idea and managing just one component still of Biz Women Rock, which is just my coaching and strategizing, which is the only thing I offer now. Doing that, then this whole meditation, it's a meditation podcast. And so the network is called the Women's Meditation Network. The very first podcast that went live under this network is called Meditation for Women. And so you might be thinking like, Katie, what? Like, you have business, you're super high energy, and then you have a meditation podcast. I promise there's a connector between all of it. But ultimately, my big why is really impacting women from the inside out so that they can be their best selves. And I have just done that through business for all these years. And I am passionate about doing it on a larger scale. So this is one way that I've decided to do it. And while I'm at the baby beginnings of this particular business model, the potential for it is one that is less reliant on me live showing up, being there and needing to be at certain things, right? Or at certain times. And one more of content creation that can get done on my own time, more of evergreen type of products and affiliate type of relationships, creating products that are one and done, and then I'm just driving traffic to them. That's just a really like a small overview of some of the ideas for the business model for it. But that business model of having a podcast network that then builds a community that then needs things that could be on that scale, that lends itself a little bit more to the lifestyle I'm about to go into here with a second little one on the way. And so that requires me being incredibly intentional about those 30 hours again.
Yes.
I have not mastered this, I have to say. Like, I'm still kind of finding my groove right now in pregnancy. And most definitely, I will need to redo what my groove is once my second child comes along. But at least right now, what it means is, you pointed out that I work in sprints, and that is so true. I launched the Meditation for Women podcast in July. I have consciously spent a minimal amount of time at least getting it out there, producing the content and doing a little bit of marketing for it, because most of my time has been spent filling my client docket before I go on maternity leave. So I'm spending a lot more time in Biz Women Rock, really getting intentional about attracting the clients that I can best help between now and the end of the year when my baby comes.
Right, because that's very strategic, because when your baby comes, you could probably be working on all the behind the scenes stuff that you don't need to get all ready for to, do your one-on-one client, right?
Exactly.
So you're switching it up. Okay, this is really good. Oh, God. And let me just pull this back a little bit, because I heard so much about life by design and seasons of our life and how seasons of our life affect seasons of our business. And that you were listening, because I think that seasons change and we don't listen. And then there's intense frustration.
Yes.
And you listened and then had to go deep. And it wasn't, we've had some off-air conversations. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm pregnant, here's the new plan. No, it was like you had to figure that out, and what does it look like? And then you went into solution mode.
Yes.
First, let me envision what the new season's going to look like. There is a new season coming, but I almost feel like you're like, well, now what do I want that season to look like? Then you created the business to support the season that you foresee yourself being a mom of two. You didn't say all that, but you did. And I just wanted to pull that back and say that was so intentional.
Yeah.
And such a blessing of entrepreneurship, because one thing that you and I obviously productivity, but at the heart of both of us is we love entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And you're exemplifying the blessings of being an entrepreneur, because the skill sets that you've learned all these years of being a business owner were in your tool belt for you to come up against this season and say, what's next?
Yes.
I've just been watching you from the outside, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so powerful, because sometimes we can get so attached to an idea in our business that we're willing to drown, trying to go and not listen to what I think you were really open to listening to.
Yeah. And, I think sometimes, again, I'm so guilty of this too. We're really ambitious. We entrepreneurs are really ambitious. We want to do so many things and make a big impact and move fast. We are movers, right? And we always have to be in motion. And so sometimes the downfall of that is that sometimes we're in motion just because we're in motion, and not because we are super clear that that's the direction that we want to be going or need to be going. There's an extra layer of stuff that comes onto this when we start seeing that person's doing that, and that's a business model that could totally work for me. And that person's doing that, and that business model could totally work for me. And I should be doing that, and I should be doing that. There's this extra added layer of expectation that we have on ourselves, whether it's externally motivated or whether it's internally I feel like I should be doing this. As a side note, this is one of the reasons why I love meditation, because meditation has always, for decades now, has been a tool for me to get quiet and get really clear about what my inner heart and soul really want versus what I think that I should do.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's not pretty. There are those seasons. I talked about just when we got pregnant, there was a 6-week, 7-week time period where I was totally paused. I was laying really low. During those 6 or 7 weeks, I had stuff that I had planned to launch and start marketing. And I was like, I'm not doing anything. I don't feel good. I was horribly nauseous. I had no energy. And worst yet, as an entrepreneur, I had no ambition. I was I literally would go from one day, I'd be like, I will make this work. I'm going to push through, to the next day being I want to give it all up. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm done.
Right.
It takes a lot of courage to stand in the silence and to stop and to listen to yourself. And it's not fun. I'm not going to lie. It's painful. It's really painful, because I am such a solution-oriented person. The beauty of that, though, is that silence and giving myself that space and relinquishing myself from the fear of the repercussions of that. Oh my God, money's going to stop coming in. Oh my God, I'm not showing up online. People are going to forget me. My business is going to die, right?
Yes.
BS. Okay. Just calling BS. Momentum is awesome, but unintentional and not deliberate momentum and forced momentum doesn't do jack for us. Okay. So right. it's okay to stop and disappear for a while if you know that you will come back with a fire. And I knew that about myself. I was talking to a cousin of mine who is a mompreneur of 4 kids, and she just rocks it. And I was like, I mean, I don't know. I'm so confused. What am I going to do? And I'm having a lot of like fear of like, will I ever get back to a place of this focus and what I want to do and the results? And she said, Katie, if there's anything I know about you, it's that when you get your heart set on something and you know, and you're clear, you work faster than anyone I've ever met. Like you are like in flow and you will produce stuff like nobody's business. And I was like, okay, cool. I trust that about myself. So I'm going to let myself pause and trust that when I know what this next phase was, because you're right, I didn't know that it was going to be this meditation thing that was created during this time. But once I got really clear on that, and once I understood it, once I wrapped my brain around it, once I got excited about it, and once I was like, oh my gosh, like felt the juice, right?
Yes.
Then it was game on, baby. Then it was like, boom, let's do this.
Let's do this. Okay, so I need to let you in and the listeners on a conversation I just had with somebody today, and it was all through Messenger. So it's a friend of mine that we're in a small group coaching. There's only 3 of us in it with our coach, and she is a go-getter. She's got an amazing business. She has 4 children. She's nursing one almost every time I think we're on a call or a Zoom, or she even had to bring the baby to like a live event that we were at so she could walk out and nurse. And she's still getting after it. And she's very limited on time. And so we're going through this group coaching program, and we have these deadlines, and we have projects that we're doing, and I'm hitting them, and I'm getting results. And she was getting frustrated. She's hitting some blocks, and she was expressing, I just feel like I'm limited on time right now. And I still have this business that I'm running, plus trying to create. And I could hear the frustration. And I just shared with her, I was like, do not compare my season with your current season. This summer, I took 6 of 8 weeks off. Maybe you were slaying it over the summer because your husband was at home because he's a teacher that could help with the children. And I was off vacationing with my family. Now, for the season that you're in, you're not going at what you consider your 100%. Yeah. And so we were going back and forth and having this interaction. And actually, I think the 3 of us had this very similar. And I just said, hey, girl, I think that you're like my sister from another mother. You're so much like me. Here's advice my husband gives me when I get down on myself about seasons where things seem slower, they don't feel like they're moving, or I don't have enough time to dedicate to in our head. These are goals in our head, right, Katie? Like, and this frustration kind of sets in. I was like, my husband always kind of taps me on the shoulder and is like, Amber, I don't think you understand that your 50% is like most people's 100%.
Yeah, exactly.
So just chill and enjoy the season. And I'm like, okay, I don't like to hear it when he says it, even though he's probably right in the moment. And so I shared those words with her, and I said, so get it, girl, just be in this moment. And she's like, oh my gosh, my husband says the same thing.
It's so true. And it has a lot to do with trusting ourselves.
Yes.
And knowing that, that full-on productivity at 100% all the time is not sustainable and not healthy. Understanding and accepting that seasons happen and trusting our personality in that and trusting the process. That sounds like such a bland statement, but it's so true. Like it was during those 6 weeks that I finally accepted it's okay that I stop. It's okay that that's the case. And during that time, I made a decision. It seemed like a very last minute random decision to go on a retreat to Italy. Because in my head, I was like, well, this is the last time I'm really going to be able to like do that kind of a travel. And this was solo, like I'm going by myself. I went with a group of other women. It was a vegan retreat, a friend that I knew who was putting it on. I was like, when am I going to have another chance in the near future to do this? And I knew I needed the alone time too. Like I needed that non-responsible alone time. And I'm telling you, whether you believe this or not, it was just part of what we were doing at the retreat. We were drawing angel cards every single morning. No joke. Every single morning, it was like the message that I was receiving was, you're on the right path. Trust the transition. You're in a transition. Trust it. It's okay. We all are going through seasons of transition at different points of our businesses, of our lives, of our womanhood, and our, for the men who are listening, for just our lives and of our families. It's a matter of like surrendering to that and trusting yourself that you're going to get the clarity when it's ready.
Yes. I think for me, my I guess, my journey to come to that same place is maybe a bit different than yours. Mine has come from fighting it and not getting anywhere for fighting it, and then realizing I didn't enjoy that season. And always realizing, oh, that was a season. And then I was like, well, why did I fight it? Well, I was fighting it because I thought that was going to be the new norm and not really seeing it as a season.
Yeah.
And having that kind of cycle a few times and reflecting back, then it's like, okay, no, I can truly enjoy this and then get excited about what's next.
Yep.
And that's kind of what I shared with her. I was like, I took a lot of time off this summer. And if you look at my growth in my business, yeah, I wasn't getting after it. You look at it now, like I'm working my butt off.
And you're so grateful that you had that time with your son and traveling, right?
I'm re-energized. I'm focused. I knew exactly what was going to happen over these next couple of months, but it was because I just let it kind of be in my head while I was in the previous season. Kind of like what you were saying is like you had time to finish that one project and then you were thinking of, okay, what does the retreat look like, which is the next one.
Yep.
In any case, I think this conversation took a completely different turn for seasons. And I think that it's something that people needed to hear, or I needed to hear today, because it's the second time I've had this conversation. So I hope it's valuable to all of you listening. I know it is, but at least for me and for Katie, I think that based on our personalities, being entrepreneurs, and I'm sure this is very similar to whoever is listening, is that the reason that we're interested in productivity or time management is because we want to get more done. We want to achieve more. And sometimes the seasons are saying it's not time for more to get done. It's time to recalibrate and rejuvenate and refocus and all of those types of things. But also something I learned is that when I fight it, the season lasts a lot longer. Yes. Because I haven't learned my lesson, or it's not working out the way it was supposed to because Amber got in the way.
Right. Yeah. I can make a really good argument. I think we've made one here for how overridingly productive quieter seasons actually are for you. Because even by the way, if it's just the act of like taking time to breathe for 15 minutes during the day, taking a brain break, the microcosm of how you spend your day is very similar to the larger time period that we're talking about. You can't be productive for like 12 hours a day, every single minute of that 12 hours. If you just stop and you take a break and you actually stop to eat,
right,
and stop to breathe or stop to go on a walk. What? To eat? What? Not in front of my computer? Like if you stop to do those things, you actually come back refreshed, refocused, re-energized, and present. So you are totally enjoying what you're doing, right? And so put to the larger journey of your business journey, that's the reason that I could be so focused in those 2 case studies that I talked about earlier, was because I took the time to be quiet and get really clear about certain things. And that would have felt really unproductive to me prior. But it was like, I need to figure this out. Like this has proven to be true over and over again. If I keep in the hustle, I am not paying attention to what I really need to be doing or doing that inner work that is required for me to then show up and be productive and be focused and be intentional and therefore get the results that I want.
Yes. So you used the word hustle while you were talking. It was like rapidly going through my head about busyness is literally stealing this from you. That busyness in our lives and our business is stealing the opportunity to be quiet and purposeful and really our most productive selves. So, oh my gosh, this is such a great conversation, Katie. Thank you so much for sharing with us about your seasons and how you gracefully have transitioned through them and the ups and the downs of what that looks like. So we did get to hear about what you're so excited about, which is your new meditation network, but you also have Biz Women Rock. What are you want to share with our audience? How do they find you? Can they find you in both places? Why don't you share that with us?
Yeah. So if you have that leaning interest towards being part of a whole community of really awesome women entrepreneurs, you can find me at bizwomenrock.com. We have a free and private Facebook group that's really active, just women supporting other women in there. And if you like meditations or are curious about meditations, you can check out the Meditation for Women podcast. And you could just find that on whatever podcast listener you're listening to this show on. And just look it up, Meditation for Women. And they are very purposeful and intuitive meditations. And believe me, it is for the person who sort of is already in the meditation space or has never really meditated before. So they're very approachable And they are anywhere from 5 to 25 minutes of guided meditations to help you take a pause throughout your day and get really in tune with who you are, what that beautiful voice really is. And ultimately, my big vision behind it is help you really light up the light that is already inside of you.
Oh my goodness. So great, Katie. It has been my pleasure to have you here on Productivity Straight Talk.
Amber, thank you so much. This was so much fun. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for joining me in on my conversation with Katie. So I got to give you some inside scoop to this. We weren't really planning to talk about seasons. It just happened. We actually had a different topic in mind that we kind of talked about in the beginning, which was how do you go through the mindset of working less and still achieving more? And what does that journey look like in our businesses? And what does come up for us, whether it's mindset and logistics and schedules? And while we did talk a lot about that, what we had realized is that different seasons in our business, different seasons in our lives actually influence the amount of time that we're working in our businesses. And so that's naturally where the conversation went, which I'm so excited it did because it was just raw, it was truthful, it was something that obviously Katie and I really, really wanted to talk to you guys about. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you realize that you are too currently in a season. Now, I don't know what season you're in. You could be in the hustle season. You could be in the reflection and recalibrating season. You could be in a season of personal life is taking precedence. You know, Katie's getting ready to have her second baby. Maybe you have sick parents or children that need your attention. This is what I know, is that when we realize that both our lives and our businesses have seasons, that when we're in them, we can truly be in them because we can see them for what they are. Before I realized I ever had seasons in my business, or even in my life, like really looking at that and how one affected the other, I would fight it. I would be like, no, it needs to be this, and it's not. And then I didn't get to enjoy that season. And the best advice that I can give you, and I'm sure we chatted about it, but if not, and you didn't hear it, I'm going to pull this out for you, is to identify what season you're in and then be in that season. Because when you're in that season, you can truly enjoy it for what it is, because it is just for a particular amount of time. There will always be time to hustle. There will be always time to grow and build and work really hard. There's a time and place for that. But if you're finding yourself in a season where that is simply not possible, stop beating yourself up about it. Give yourself grace. Do your best and create a plan that maximizes your productivity within the season that you're in. Now, Katie and I jumped off, and Katie forgot to share with you how to actually get her decision-making matrix that she shared with you in the episode. So if you want to know how she identifies how to make decisions about where her time, energy, and focus go in her business, head on over to bizwomenrock.com/decision. Again, that's bizwomenrock.com/decision. And as always, all the links will be in our show notes over at theproductivityspecialist.com. I have loved having you listen to this episode of Productivity Straight Talk, but I need to be straight with you. No change, no change. Without taking action, nothing will change for you or your business. So based on today's episode, based on what you learned, based on what you heard, based on maybe something that made you give some thought, what will you take action on today? Now, I love that this time in the podcast is for you to stop and reflect and identify what you want to take action on. It could really be anything that you believe that once you took action on will move you forward towards your goals and vision of success. And that's truly what I want for you today. So for me, this episode was a great reminder of identifying the season that I'm in and then enjoying it wholeheartedly. And the more that I'm enjoying the season that I'm in, the more I'm in alignment with who I am. I'm in alignment with my business. And for goodness sakes, a hell of a lot less stress. To share your actionables and receive support, guidance, and motivation from entrepreneurs just like you, join us on over at the Productivity Straight Talk Facebook community. If you're not already a member, you can join us for free by going to productivitycommunity.com. Again, that's productivitycommunity.com. And lastly, I have a special thank you going out to Tracy Adams, who recently left me a review on iTunes. It's obvious Amber is passionate about helping entrepreneurs pursue and successfully fulfill their dreams. She takes information we may have already heard and would seem common sense and explains it with a motivational spin in a way that makes you think. Amber is relatable, has an edge, and is easy to understand and follow, and keeps your attention. She delivers useful information in a practical way that can help anyone become more productive. Thank you so much for your kind words, Tracy. And for any of you listening that would love to leave me a review on iTunes, I would be so grateful for you to take just a few moments of your time. Leave in your very own words what you get out of Productivity Straight Talk each week. So that's my straight talk for you today. And until next time, have a productive week.